don't know no nigga like me.
Alright guys, so Fuga coming to you with another video. Shout outs to the whole LDBC. If you like this video, please like the video, and also please subscribe to the page as well. So we're in a new year. We're in a new, as they say, new decade. And rather than although I'm thankful for making it through last year, because there were a lot of challenges, so I'm not gonna name all of them on here. I'm not going to say anything about those challenges, but anyhow, rather than me celebrate the new year, I rather just actually commemorate some more important events that happened on this day. And I'm gonna name two events because they're kind of interconnected with one another, because for one, they both happened in the Caribbean, and for two, they both had a strong African presence in those events. And those two events was the independence of Haiti, or the proper term is Haiti, and also the I want to say the triumph of the Cuban Revolution from under the Batista regime. Now, the thing is, the reason why they're interconnected, unfortunately, the first reason has to do with slavery, because of the simple fact that you had slaves brought over, and they were placed on either the island of Santo Domingo, which is now known as Haiti, or they were placed in Cuba. Now, granted, not all the black population on those two places are descended from slaves. We do have reports of seafarers before slavery who actually went to those places from Africa and actually discovered things and whatnot. Now, the second reason why they're interconnected is because the backbone of the revolution was definitely Africans on both sides, Cuban Revolution and also the I want to say the Haitian Revolution, definitely. Because when you look at the Cuban Revolution, you had guys who just passed away. By the way, you have Hattie Viegas, black. You had guys I believe his name is I think his name is Henry Drake, who was in the revolution. And you have tons of other guys who were in the Cuban Revolution. As a matter of fact, when I was in Cuba, there were a couple of black Cubans there who actually showed me um their like, their identification, showing that, they partook in the revolution when it happened. uh I mean, even when you go to Cuba, you see like you you see that the fact of the matter is that in Santiago de Cuba, in the Sierra Maestra, it's where the revolution was really like able to gain a foothold and actually succeed. You know what I mean? And the the reason why this is significant, and why I find the Cuban Revolution very significant, and I'll go back to the Haitian independence, because as I said, this is a 2-for-1. The reason why the Cuban Revolution is so significant is for the simple fact, if there wasn't a revolution, chances are certain nations in Africa would not be out of colonialism. There would have been a very, very strong possibility that Africa, like South Africa, would still be in an apartheid system, and also that apartheid would have spread to other nations like Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, if it wasn't for the Cuban Revolution. Because once the Cuban Revolution happened, it led to their sense of internationalism in assisting other nations with their revolutions and with their anti-colonial struggle. I mean, as I said before, in many videos, if it wasn't for the aid that we got in Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau, then I probably, and my family, my immediate family, would probably all still be like, I want to say, like, what's a good word? Enslaved, basically, because, under the Portuguese, in both places, they had to do what was called forced labor, where they had to work and they weren't getting paid for that labor. Now, I mean, if you look at the track record, Cuba has assisted in Algeria. Cuba has assisted in my neck of the woods, where I come from, Cabo Verde and Guinea-Bissau. Cuba has, hosted many African students, African medical students, my sister being one of those students. Cuba has, basically done a lot, but this would not be possible if it wasn't for the revolution, because pre-revolutionary Cuba was ran by Batista, and when you really look at it, Batista just pretty much was just pretty much doing the bidding of the United States. I mean, gangsters will go to Cuba to like swindle people out of money in casinos. Pre-revolutionary Cuba was like a playground for, mobsters, for, people just like high rollers, and the privileged elite of that country. And now, granted, the privileged elite of that country have more in common with Americans than they did with their own inhabitants, because, as I said before, the majority of Cubans are of mixed ancestry, and the majority of Cubans do not actually resemble, like, how should I say it, like European Latins. You know what I mean? That's a very small minority of them, who have those characteristics. And so, when Castro came in, and put an end to that, it just turned the country upside down. And unfortunately, because, of the blockade and the collapse of the Soviet Union, Cuba has, had like considerable hardships for basically standing firm on what they believe in. You know what I mean? We can go to many episodes that show that, their sovereignty was always, under attack. The we gotta look at the Bay of Pigs. They try to attack them there. We gotta look at, the other attacks in the Caribbean, like to serve as an example of what not to do. We just gotta look at, what they did in Grenada, with their revolutionary struggle, basically. Now, with that being said, this is a day that I just reminisce on that, because that triumph of the revolution, like, that thing came with conditions, because of they were being hunted down, like by Batista's men and things like that, and the crazy thing about this whole situation of the revolution is, like, it got to a point where they had so low food supplies and things like that, and drink supplies, that they even had to drink their own urine. And that's just showing, like, the extent of what they believed in, in order to succeed at their objectives. And I don't think anybody today would do that if they, stood on their own two and really believed in something. I don't think they would, I don't think they would go that far to do something like that, So, shout outs to Cuba and the January 1st, the triumph of the revolution. I think it's about time I return to Cuba. So, stay tuned for videos on that, and this time when I go back, I'll have a better camera so I can give y'all really some good eyewitness views from behind the lenses. Now, on to Haiti. Haiti, it being independent, means a lot, because of the simple fact that this was a contingent of different groups of black people from different parts of Africa coming together for one common goal, and that was their sovereignty. And that's why you look at the language of Creole, and it's a combination of basically just different African dialects mixed with French, and so their Independence Day is very significant because of the simple fact that the conditions that they had to fight under, when you really look at it, they didn't have the same artillery as, for example, the French. They didn't have the same artillery as the British. They didn't have the same artillery as those kind of powers. But they still managed to, find a way to get the job done. And I believe the reason why they got the job done had to do with the fact of the esoteric, factor that came into this, because there were two guys that kind of pretty much kick-started the Haitian Revolution. There was a guy by the name of Francis Mackendal, and there was another guy by the name of Duty Boukman. Now, both of these guys were it seems like both of them were what we refer to in West Africa as Marabout. And what that means is that they were like holy warriors. They basically, believed, had like esoteric inclinations, but they believed in armed struggle. And they combined the two to like revolt. And another thing they did is use different types of herbs in order to kind of, offset their enemies. Like they would use different types of herbs, and they would make a plot to poison all the slave masters. But the problem is, you had in that you had some mulattoes and some lackeys and some stooges who would tip off the masters ahead of time, so those things weren't successful. And then you have you fast forward, and you have Toussaint, I think his name's Toussaint Louverture or something, I forgot the name, but he, rather than do it primitively how the former two did it, he did it in a more organized, militaristic manner, and he was a general. He was actually a freedman, but he just saw basically what was going on in society, and he just couldn't sit back and really let this go, really let this succeed, And the reason why Haitian independence is so important is because without Haiti, Venezuela may not be free, or may have not gotten independence. Ecuador may have not gotten independence. Colombia may have not gotten independence from the Spaniards, because what happened is, once Haiti was independent, Simon Bolivar, he actually asked for help, in terms of military, like physical manpower, and also artillery too. And so I think the guy who was in power at the time, I think his name was like Dessalines, he said, yeah, no problem, we got you, but all you got to do is just abolish slavery in these places. You don't got to pay us back. You don't got to do anything like that. You just got to abolish slavery, and we're good, And so, yeah, that's why the independence of Haiti is very important, And I'm going to say something about that, about these two places, and I'm going to end this video on this note. Europe nor the United States has never ever forgiven these two places for doing what they're doing. The United States was actually trying to make, like how they did Puerto Rico as a U.S. territory. They were trying to do the same thing for Haiti and Cuba, but Haiti really, or Cuba, did not want that. They wanted their sovereignty. And so, what happened is, there were, when the United States occupied Haiti, they did a lot of horrible things there. They did plenty of horrible things in that place. And, they never forgave Haiti for doing that. Uh, you know, France never forgave Haiti for doing what it did. As a matter of fact, France is like saw to it that no matter who goes into power in Haiti, that is always going to be excuse me, that is always going to be a guy who has their interests at large, and has the elite's interests at large, and doesn't have the general masses interests. And Haiti is not a poor place. The thing is, you watch these shows, you watch like these concerts by Haiti and things like that. Haiti does not actually need those concerts, because Haiti is sitting on natural materials, sitting on gas, sitting on everything needed to turn that island into a self-sufficient state with high living standards. It has everything there. The problem is that the people who are running it are not really caring about that, you know. And so again, we look at the patterns, we look at these patterns of these revolutionary states, okay? We look at the patterns of Cuba, we look at the patterns of Venezuela, we look at the patterns of Haiti, we look at the patterns of Bolivia. The more recent episode that I will keep mentioning, because nobody really mentions it that much, we look at the episode of Eritrea, okay? All of these places want to do one thing, okay? And that's one thing that the West doesn't want them to do, okay? And we look at Libya and what it wanted to do. The West does not want it to do that, and the thing is about that is that these examples need to be used, though. Not every African country is going to run the same. Not every Caribbean country is not going to run the same. But we're all related in one way or another. In the African, the mainland of Africa, if you're on the continent of Africa, if you're in the Caribbean, if you're in the Latin American community, Latin American country, we're all in one way or another related. And I'm not saying that we're all the same. There's a difference between being related and all the same. I'm saying that we are related in one way or another, and our relation is based on the same challenges that we have had to go through because of our desire for self-sufficiency and sovereignty and self-determination. So I say this to end this video, to say that the colorism, the Eurocentralism, the petty bourgeoisie looking down on peasants, that thing needs to stop. And we need to circulate what we have, what we're working with, whatever we're working with, we need to circulate what we're working with amongst each other, so we can learn as we go and possibly create a reality, a present present reality that we will be appreciative of, and a future reality for the next generation as well. that will make them proud to be who they are, rather than look at another culture that has, constantly oppressed us and, constantly exploited us and constantly used us, constantly steal from us as a shining light. But anyhow, man, happy Independence Day to my Zols out there. Sock Passe. And Feliz Dia de Revolucional to all my Cubanos out there, who really rock with the Cuban Revolution, And the disclaimer, on both of these things, the Haitian fight for independence and the Cuban Revolution, I'm not saying that there weren't any mistakes, there probably were some mistakes, but, overall, the purpose and the intention of the revolutions were pure. So I rock with both of them. Fula signing out. Leave your thoughts, leave your comments. And John.